She had everything money could buy, but not the heart to respect those who had nothing. One cold evening, a single moment changed how she saw the world forever. When she refused to sit beside a poor girl, she thought she was above everyone. But destiny has a way of humbling the proud. This is the story of how life taught her the most beautiful lesson. Amara was born into a family where luxury wasn't a dream, it was the norm. Crystal chandeliers hung in every room of her mansion, marble floors shone like mirrors, and servants rushed at every call. Her father was a well-known businessman, and her mother was a socialite who cared only about status and appearance. From childhood, Amara was taught one silent rule: stay away from the poor. At school, she never used the school bus. Her driver brought her in a black luxury car every morning. Her clothes were always branded, her shoes expensive, and her attitude reflected the world she grew up in. She walked with her chin high and eyes that never looked down at anyone she thought was less. In her class was a quiet girl named Zara. She wore old uniforms, carried a faded backpack, and always sat alone. Some days she didn't even have lunch. Her father worked as a mechanic, and her mother stitched clothes at home. She never complained, never bothered anyone. She simply studied with quiet determination. One day, Amara entered the classroom and noticed Zara sitting in the middle row. Amara had always sat there, and seeing someone she considered beneath her in her place made her angry. "Get up," she said sharply, standing with her hand on her hip. Zara looked confused, but there are so many empty seats. You can sit anywhere. Amara's voice grew colder. "I don't sit with people like you." The entire class fell silent. Some students looked uncomfortable. Others simply watched. Zara didn't fight. She stood up quietly and moved to the last bench. Amara sat down with pride, not realizing how deeply her words had cut. During lunch, her friends laughed with her, praising her boldness. They had learned from her that mocking others made you look stronger. She laughed too, thinking there was nothing wrong with what she did. But not everyone ignored it. Their class teacher, Miss Samina, had seen Zara sitting alone again, her eyes lowered, holding back tears. But she said nothing at the moment. She knew time would teach Amara better than words could. At home, Amara's mother praised her for maintaining her standards. There was no kindness, no empathy in the walls of that house. Everything was about being elite, being untouchable. Amara never knew what it meant to struggle. She never knew what it meant to walk with torn shoes or sleep without dinner. She believed that wealth made her superior, that status was everything. Sitting with those who had less felt like an insult to her identity, little did she know, life was already preparing a lesson she could never forget. It was a rainy Friday evening when everything changed. The school day had ended and most students had already gone home. Amara waited near the gate, scrolling on her phone, annoyed that her driver was late. The sky turned darker and heavy rain began to fall. Thunder rumbled across the clouds as strong winds swept leaves around the campus. Minutes turned to almost an hour. Amara called her driver again and again, but his phone was off. She called her mother. No answer. Her father, busy. The guards were closing the school gate. She stood under a small shed, her expensive shoes now splashed with mud. She was irritated, not scared. At least not yet. Then the storm got worse. Roads flooded, trees swayed dangerously, and the sky roared like a warning. The last few staff members hurried away. Amara hugged herself and looked around helplessly. She had never been alone like this before. Just across the gate stood Zara, holding a broken umbrella. She was waiting for her father to pick her on his motorbike. Even from a distance, she saw Amara standing alone, trembling slightly. After another 15 minutes, no one came for either of them. Zara's father called and said he was stuck due to a fallen tree blocking the road. Amara was now shivering. The rain had soaked her clothes, and the wind slapped her face. Her phone battery died. She looked around desperately and finally approached the gatekeeper. "Please call someone to drop me home," she demanded. He looked at her with sympathy. "Beta, even bikes can't move right now. The road is flooded." Her throat tightened. For the first time, she felt fear clawing at her chest. No chauffeur, no friends, no mother, no father. Just the storm and her vulnerability. Zara watched silently. She remembered Amara's harsh words, the public insult, the humiliation of being treated like dirt. But she also saw a frightened girl who had never faced hardship. Minutes passed like hours. Amara's hands turned cold, her eyes watery, not from the rain, but from panic. Suddenly, the shed roof started leaking. Amara moved back and slipped on the wet floor, falling to her knees. That broke something inside her. The pride she had worn like a crown shattered into fear and helplessness. Zara hesitated, then stepped forward. She didn't speak. She simply extended her small umbrella over Amara. Amara looked up, confused and embarrassed. Zara's face was calm, not angry, not proud, just quietly kind. Lightning struck somewhere distant, and the wind howled louder. Without a word, Zara guided her toward the guard's room where it was dry and safe. Amara didn't resist. She followed, trembling, her eyes lowered, not in arrogance but in shame. For the first time in her life, she felt what it meant to depend on someone she once looked down upon. Inside the small guard room, the lights flickered. A single wooden bench and a dusty chair sat against the wall. Zara gave Amara the bench and sat on the chair herself. The guard handed them both a blanket, apologizing that it was old. Amara wrapped herself in it without complaint. She glanced at Zara, expecting judgment, but there was none. Silence filled the room until Zara softly spoke, "Your home is far, right?" Amara nodded without looking up. "You can wait with me. My father will come when the road's clear." No pride remained in Amara's voice when she replied, "Thank you for helping me." Zara simply nodded. She didn't mention the past. She didn't remind her of the insult. She didn't say, "I told you so." That silence was more powerful than any anger. After nearly an hour, Zara's father arrived, drenched and worried. When he saw Amara sitting beside his daughter, he asked if she needed help. Zara quietly explained the situation. Without hesitation, he said, "Beta, I will drop you home. No child should be alone in this weather." Amara expected a small bike, but he had borrowed a neighbor's rickshaw to take both girls safely. He placed a cover around them to protect them from the rain as much as he could. During the ride, Amara looked at Zara, truly seeing her for the first time. Her simple clothes, her calm eyes, her gentle nature, none of it reflected weakness. It reflected strength she had never known. They reached Amara's mansion. The gatekeeper rushed to open the door, shocked to see her arrive in a rickshaw. Zara's father got down to help Amara step out safely. Amara's mother came running, angry and embarrassed. But before she could speak, Amara said something no one expected. "Mama, he helped me when no one else did. And Zara, she protected me." Her mother fell silent, surprised. Amara turned to Zara and her father. With tears in her eyes, she said, "I'm sorry for everything." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't forced. It was quiet and real. The next day at school, Amara did something that shocked everyone. She walked into class, spotted Zara on the last bench, and went straight to her. There were many empty seats, but Amara sat beside her. Every student stared. Whispers filled the room, but Amara didn't care. She looked at Zara and said, just loud enough for her to hear, "Thank you, and I hope we can start over." Zara gave a small, forgiving smile. From that day on, everything changed, not because Zara needed her, but because Amara had finally learned what real richness was. Kindness doesn't ask who you are. It doesn't check your clothes, your status, or your name. It shows up when you need it the most, often from those you least expect. Respect is not about wealth, it's about humanity. Because life has its own way of teaching what pride refuses to learn.